Hi, welcome back to the sixth film in our series entitled The Master Trainer. In the last film and in this film, we're focusing on that part of the systematic training process that looks at designing a learning activity, a learning event. Last time we looked at how the work of a man called Malcolm Knowles, who put forward a set of adult learning principles, how those principles should influence the way we go about designing our training. And in this film, I just want to carry on a little bit in that vein, but really I want to provide maybe 10 or so quick tips that we can hold in our minds that will just help us as we go through the process. But first of all, I would suggest there are probably 5 questions that we need to continually ask ourselves. First question is this: is it credible? Is what we are doing credible to the learner? Does it have that ring of authenticity about it? The second question is, will it garner commitment? In other words, will it engage the learner to such an extent that they will be with us and they'll want to stay with us? The third question is, does it manage the risk around the learning process for the learner? As you move into any new area, as you move into activities of change, there's always a sense of personal risk. Are we building in sufficient safety nets, sufficient areas where they can feel at home and comfortable? Does it manage the risk? The next question is, will it keep their attention? That's an obvious one, isn't it? We need them to stick with us. But the last question is, will it give me, as a master trainer, the opportunity to maneuver within the training room as I want to respond to the unexpected? Okay, so as we're asking those 5 questions continually of ourselves, there are probably 10 tips I'd give you that would help you to answer a yes to each one of those questions. So the first tip is to maximize learner interaction. Interaction not just with the material, interaction not just with you as the master trainer, but interaction with each other as well. So the first tip is maximize interaction. The second tip is this: signpost. Signpost and signpost again. Adults really need to know where they're going. They need to know why they're going there. So continually build in signposts that lead the way for them. The third tip is this: vary pace and rhythm. I'm not talking about the delivery of the trainer here, the voice. I'm talking about the activity and the flow of the training. It's the difference between going to a live rock concert and standing in a hotel lift with that music playing on your ears and putting you to sleep. It's that different. As we vary the pace and the rhythm, then the energy rises and falls, and the engagement with the subject matter also increases too. In a similar vein, the next tip is this: chunk your content. Now, of course, in some quarters, chunking content goes into producing a logical order and building argument, that kind of stuff. I'm approaching it from a slightly different angle. Learners, adult learners, respond to beginnings and endings. So what I'm asking you to do is build in lots of beginnings and endings. Chunk the content up so that you have beginnings for each chunk and an endings for each chunk. And therefore, you're engaging the learner many, many times throughout the day. The next tip is this: map the learner's world. In other words, we need to start off where the learners are. We need to talk their language. We need to tap into their aspirations and their desires. They, the learner, are the most important person in this whole process. And so we need to live in their world and map their world against our training design. The next tip is to give the learner choice. Give them choice. In other words, treat them as colleagues and collaborators in this great adventure of learning that you've invited them to join with you. So give the learners choice. The next tip is this: provide opportunity for different views. Different views are bound to be there. They may be a nuanced view about the way things should be done. They actually may be opposite viewpoints to what the trainer is trying to get across. So need to build in opportunities for those views to come to the surface. Build in opportunities for views to come to the surface so they can be looked at, dealt with, and we can move on. The next tip is this: balance learning and theory. We all need some theory to justify the activity we're asking for. But too much theory really will just swamp people. So we need a balance between theory and practice. The next tip is this: build in feedback. I don't just mean feedback from the trainer to the learner. I'm not really just talking about feedback between all the learners, peer feedback. I think I'm also thinking about periods of silence where the learner is allowed to reflect and feed back to themselves what they're going through, to meditate on their experience and to discover the connections that are taking place with what they already know. So build in periods of feedback. And the last tip I'd give you is this: design for closure. The last thing that we want is for our learning event just to peter out, just for it to dissipate into the atmosphere, for people to feel as though they've got to fill in their evaluation forms and then disappear off into the distance. We have to make sure that learners leave with a sense of completion and a sense of achievement. The only way we'll do that is by building in to the design closure. What is the activity we're going to close on? What do we want the trainer to say to close off the learning activities? What's the takeaway, the challenge, the call to action that we want to ring in the ears of the learners as they go out of the door? So we need to build into the design closure. So they're just my 10 tips and 5 questions that we need to ask. The supporting material for this film is a checklist, I should say, that will help you through the design process. And of course, I encourage you, as always, to please leave a comment, engage in the subject matter, give me your viewpoints on it, and we'll all learn together. Thanks very much, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye. Hi, thanks for watching that film. I hope there was at least one thing you could take away with you. I want to keep you just for 20 seconds more because I want you to do something for me. This is a brand new channel, as you know, and we've got a load of things that we want to do with you. We've got a ton of stuff we want to give you. The only thing is YouTube needs you to subscribe, and they will then allow us to do the stuff we want to do. Red button down to the right-hand side, click it, all done. Please subscribe. The sooner you subscribe, the sooner we can do great stuff with you. Thanks.